Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, you know you can't pretend. The days pass by, they've set in stone. But it's not too late now for you to change your tone. Don't speak. Don't speak. Open your soul. Don't harden your heart.
Hey everyone, it's Marianne from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. Today is Friday. It is May 23rd and it is 6:30 and we're doing our usual Friday update. And we also have another candidate to interview and introduce to all of you that's running for District 4. So a couple of updates for you. So since we last spoke, there's been a couple more people who have supported us that are running for office. And let me just pull up one more. I think I forgot my list. And so we also know that this weekend is Memorial Day. So our page will be closed for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We're giving everybody a little bit of a break. And then we will reopen back up on Tuesday. Frank Morano, who you guys helped helped elect in a special election in District 51 when Councilman Joe Borelli stepped down, was elected. He actually messaged all of us on social media this week. I'm sure many of you saw that one of his very first official duties was to sign our legislation Intro 1096. So everyone, please, if you can, head on over when you have an opportunity to Frank Morano's social media page and just say thank you for him doing that. He is running in the general election because this was a special election to elect him. So we have to re-elect him again. So we're going to get behind Frank one more time. And he does have a primary. So we want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. And I'm sure we'll be bringing Frank back to speak with you. So make sure you say thank you, because that was his very first official duty, was signing on to our legislation to protect our health care. And it would be his too, because he's now a city employee, right? He'd eventually be a retiree. If you remember, during the debate we had in April, one of the candidates, Whitney Tilson, he was the gentleman all the way to the right, and he was saying that he would be the snake in the room and he wasn't agreeing with anything. We should be in Medicare Advantage. It was fine because he was on one. I also want to report to you that after meeting with him, he decided to change his position, sent us a letter of support on all three of our issues, and he too is another retiree supporter. So I just wanted to let you guys know that in case you were looking to see who he was or find out more about him, because he actually did change his position after learning about the cons. We always say the pros and cons of Medicare Advantage. So after he understood and he heard from me, we spoke about it. We gave him our one-pagers. He reversed his position, and now he is a retiree supporter. You can find all of the candidates that are supporting us on our candidate website, which is retiredlaborstrong.nyc. Also, another candidate that is supporting us is Abu Dekate, and he's running in District 49, and that is Kamala Harris's district. If you remember, Kamala is a Democrat that is in that district that signed onto our bill one morning and signed off of it that afternoon, and never spoken to us again after that. So I don't understand why this is, but she has not had a meeting with us recently. She will not speak to anyone about this issue, and this is one of the things that we find most concerning. So yet we have one more candidate. We will be introducing him to all of you next week, so you get to meet him too. And I think that's it so far for the news. We will be bringing you some more information as it does come in. If you are also a UFT retiree, please make sure if you haven't got your ballots in at this point, it's probably too late to mail them. Please look on the website and go on to the slates that you're supporting site and find the instructions from them. Typically, they're encouraging you to actually drop them off at one of the in-person voting locations, as that deadline, I believe, was May 29th. Okay, so we're going to start now. I'm going to introduce you to Rachel Storch. She is running for District 4 for New York City Council. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, good evening. I am thrilled to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You are absolutely welcome. So, in running for New York City Council, is this your first time running for New York City Council?
Yes, this is my first time running for council. It is not my first time running for office.
Great. What did you run for before?
So I have a little bit of a different story because I was actually a Democratic state lawmaker. I first took office 20 years ago, and I was in office in the state of Missouri. So my story is definitely a little different than most other candidates. But I had been born in New York. My dad was actually working at Bellevue at the time, and we lived down near town. But when I was young, he got a position at Washington University Medical School, and we moved to St. Louis. And I went to law school at WashU. I became a legal aid attorney working on Medicaid and access to health care. You can see why our paths have crossed. This is always been a very serious interest of mine, and fighting to expand coverage and fighting to expand access. But in 2000, I got involved in politics. I went to work for Governor Mel Carnahan, who was running for the United States Senate against John Ashcroft. And you and some of your listeners may remember that he died in a plane crash just 3 weeks before the election, but he won posthumously. And his wife, Jean, was appointed to take his place. She became Missouri's first woman senator. And I had the privilege of going to Washington, D.C. with her and serving as her deputy chief of staff in the United States Senate. I handled a slate of legislative issues there, including public safety, education and education appropriations, judicial nominations, immigration. And I think it just got into my blood a little bit. They were tremendous public servants, sort of in an old school way. They were never cynical about politics. They just saw it as a positive tool to bring about people's lives. And I think that was how I always saw it. So when her term ended, I took a job as legal counsel in the state Senate. And then when term limits opened up a seat in the district where I'd been living, I went back and I ran for office and I won. I was an urban progressive legislator in a conservative state. I had the honor of serving on the budget committee, a very coveted spot, ways and means, appropriations for economic development and transportation. And that was really a passion of mine. I continued to advocate for the same low-income families that I had worked for at Legal Aid. I just had a better platform to do it from. And then in 2009, 15 years ago, when I got married, I came back to New York, to the district where I'd been born, and I have been raising my 4 children here. I'm a mom of 4. I have a boy and 3 girls. They're 10, 11, 12, and 14 years old. And I can say that as deep a passion as I have for politics and public policy, my most important job title will always be as their mom.
That's fantastic. And that's a great history too. So that definitely prepares you for doing this job.
Yes. And, for the last 5.5 years, I've been serving as the chief operating officer at Fifth Avenue Synagogue in the Midtown area. And before that, worked at the 92nd Street Y. But last year, I just came to feel that things were so off kilter in the city. Mismanagement of so many issues, problems around public safety, a crisis around affordability. And it just, became very clear to me we needed some strong and experienced voices at the table to right the ship. I launched my campaign for city council. My kids are a little bit older now. And I'm thrilled to take the almost 30 years of experience I have. It's scary to think about it, but, working as a lawyer, serving on the government side, serving in office myself, and running a major Manhattan nonprofit and putting it to work for Manhattan families at a time when there really is a need.
Absolutely. So you actually have one question so far. It says, "Hi, Rachel. I'm asking this question for both myself and another constituent. Why did you decline to accept matching funds for your campaign?"
Okay, sure. So I'll just explain that to the listeners. New York City has a matching funds program, and it's a great program that I support as someone who's done a lot of candidate recruitment in the past, particularly recruitment of women or candidates of color. And I know and appreciate that the bar can often be higher for those candidates in raising money to run for office. And the matching funds program in New York has been successful in lowering the barrier for some of those candidates to run and win. And I strongly support the program. In my own case, I made a strategic decision not to take the matching funds. Different candidates bring different strengths and weaknesses to the table. There's one candidate who's run before and had the benefit of taxpayer dollars to get her name out there. There's another candidate in my race who has a name that's very well known on the East Side, justifiably due to her mother's record of public service. And I wanted to make sure that voters would know my name when they go to vote and know my track record and know my story. And I'm really grateful that today I have more New York donors than any other candidate in this race. I have,
Wow.
probably somewhere around 1,000 donors at this point of people who are aligned with the vision I have for New York City, a safer, more affordable New York. And I've raised those dollars by going out and talking to people, and it's a people powered campaign. And even when someone gives $5 or $10, that really makes me feel that they have some buy-in in the race, and I'm running for them. The strength I bring to this is a very enthusiastic network of supporters, and I'm proud of that.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that answer.
Absolutely.
And yes, actually, she is one of the supporters one of the candidates that is supporting our issue. So I'll recap those just for the sake of it. So there were 3 issues that we asked all of our candidates that we're speaking with if they would agree to, we would support them, right? And those questions were: do you support retirees not being forced into Medicare Advantage, supporting our traditional Medicare, that they would help us expedite that statutory reimbursement of our Medicare B premium, that's in 12-126, from 16 to 22 months to hopefully the same year, like in the quarter that we're paying it. And then the third thing is that if on when the retiree dies, we lose our healthcare, our dependents lose our healthcare.
Yeah.
So we wanted a little bit of a grace period to allow our dependent to secure healthcare. And that came out of a retiree who had informed us that his wife was a retiree and she was 100% behind us and was donating on a recurring monthly basis. And when she passed, he wanted us to stop that. Her healthcare ended when she passed. He did not know that.
Yeah.
And it was an unexpected passing. And when that happened, he suffered a cardiac episode and was very distraught and went into the hospital for 10 days. And when he left with a bill of $250,000. And they told him, by the way, your insurance was canceled. And could you just imagine losing your spouse and losing your health care and going to the hospital and now having a $250,000 bill? No one should have to go through that. And we felt it really should be more humane, and especially to not traumatize someone who's already going through a trauma, that at least give them a 30, 60, or a 90-day. We're kind of leaving it open, but at least a period that someone could have said, hey, Mr. So-and-so, I'm so sorry you lost your spouse, but you're also losing your health care. And let me help you so you learn what the next process is to secure health care for yourself. Because they're probably not familiar with how to do that. And many of them are older. He was in his 80s. So those were the 3 things that we asked all of our candidates to get behind. And we also asked that they would, when they're in office, that they would just continue the communication with us. If you heard me on the radio this morning at 7 a.m., we had a union president from the federal union, AFGE, one of his coworkers is a retiree. He says, I'm a new president and I don't know everything. And I actually brought on my retiree to help me. I was so excited by that because they Recognize, respect, and appreciate that someone who did this job for a very long time had the knowledge and experience to help them be successful at theirs. And so Rachel was one of those people that agreed to the letter and gave that to us and said she would support us. So here we are today. So we'll say that every time.
Thank you. Well, just to that very last point about the grace period, I think anybody who's gone through a loss of an immediate family member or a very, very close, intimate friend knows that there's some real trauma involved, and just the logistics can be very overwhelming. Sometimes there's a hospital situation to deal with, the mechanics of the burial. To your point, many of these people might be older, and the paperwork can be very, very overwhelming in that type of situation. And just to bring a little bit of humanity into that process to allow for that grace period, whether it's 30 or 60 or 90 days, wherever it falls, but just to understand that on day one, someone is not going to have capacity in most cases to make those kinds of complicated decisions. It's not realistic. As far as the Medicare disadvantage, I'll call it, to me, that is just a black and white issue. You do not back up on a commitment that was made to people. Our city retirees earn those healthcare benefits through years and years of dedicated public service, and often sacrificing higher wages that they could have gotten in the private sector because there was a promise of secure retirement benefits at the end. So we don't go back at a time when they are more vulnerable, when they are more likely to have health issues, when most of them can no longer collectively bargain, and force them into a less advantageous plan that is less choice, less flexibility, less coverage, less choice around hospitals. It's simply a less good plan. It's not right.
You want to run for mayor? That was a great answer, Rachel. So Matthew says, in light of contemporary extreme influences union bosses are exerting upon elected officials, can you speak to realistic changes that can be implemented to stop these practices? So let me kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what we're seeing.
Sure.
So our former unions, because let me go back to him. Our former unions are interfering in our legislation. Because we're no longer in unions, like you correctly stated, that we are not covered by their collective bargaining agreements, where the deals that we made, they're supposed to honor them. We kept our end of the bargain. They're supposed to keep theirs. Their unions can only negotiate for wages, hours, and work conditions for those in their unions. We're not in their unions. And the legislation that we did made sure that it said that none of this legislation will not impair a union from collectively bargaining for those in their union. We did this on the state side, for example. Okay. And yet the international AFL-CIO, AFSCME, today I was told CSEA, CWA, PEF, Public Employees Federation, and I think there was one more, had interfered, DC 37 and the UFT also interfered in our state legislation to try to alter the language of our bill. And they did. They caused the Senate sponsor to withdraw our bill and basically now alter that bill will not get passed this year. Mm-hmm. It was a very destructive thing that they did by intimidating legislators. And then they're also doing this in the city council. So if you've been reading the papers, DC 37 told all of the constituents that were running, the council members, let's stick with that first, that if they wanted the union endorsement, that they would not get it if they were supporting retirees. And this to me is egregious because they're not recognizing they created a them versus us when one day they will be us. And this is the pressure that they're putting on council members. They're literally telling them, as they did like Councilwoman Alexa Aviles, if you support those retirees and we endorsed you, we will withdraw our endorsement and any support we're giving you. And so they feel, I guess, that they have to be beholden to them or that they need their support to win their election. And so that's why they chose them over us. So there's most of the city council is 51 people in the council, 14 people are on our bill. because I think it was the last one was Darlene Neely for some reason got on our bill and like 3 days later got off of our bill. And then last 2 months ago, I think it was Camila Harris from Staten Island, District 49. She got on our bill and got off it the same day. And the speaker's intimidating her, and so was the unions. So that's what you'd be up against if you were elected, is that the speaker is literally threatening the council members not to touch our bill that with council seats or discretionary funding for their districts. And then that's what's left us basically abandoned. So that's what Matthew is alluding to.
Well understood, and it's significant. Let me start out by saying that I was always proud of having a 100% pro-labor record when I was in office. So just to be clear, I was a deputy whip of my caucus. I worked hand in hand with organized labor, standing strong against any attacks on collective bargaining and supporting project labor agreements and prevailing wage. So I have a long history of working with organized labor, and it's one that I'm proud of. And I certainly come into this wanting to maintain relationships like that. But being an effective legislator is always about one, relationship building, and two, courageous leadership. It's about bringing diverse stakeholders to the table, looking to build consensus, not fighting in a way where the door is going to slam in your face, but not being afraid to stand up and speak out when there is an issue where some moral clarity is needed. I think it's unfortunate in this case that there is an us versus them dynamic being created. There's almost always a solution that can be found around compromise. And, again, one of the strengths I've had in my years as a legislator and working in public policy and politics is being able to bridge divides. And that would certainly be the perspective I would enter into on this issue too. It's such a critical one. And look, these union members now will be the retirees of tomorrow. And to the extent we just have to continue to make that point, that's got to be compelling. It just doesn't make sense for current union members to bargain away or to balance a budget on the backs of their retirees, because one day that too will be them. But again, it's about bringing the stakeholders to the table, looking for the common ground, working to build consensus, not going in with an attitude, but going in with an open mind. And I hear you that there's, a very complicated dynamic right now, but that's the skill of legislating.
And I wish there were more legislators that spoke like that. I'll be honest with you, because like today, a state senator said to me, "Well, Marianne, you just don't understand legislation. These are some of the largest unions in the state, and there's no legislator that's going to stand up to them."
Look, there's a vacuum of courageous leadership, and this city and this state and this country need that more than ever. We need people who aren't afraid to speak up. Do you win every battle? You don't win every battle, but does that mean you don't say your piece, that you don't speak up? Never. Why bother to run for the job? Why bother to hold the position if you're just keeping the bench warm? It's about fighting for the people around you and fighting for what's right. That is the only reason to do it.
I hope you run for future office. Yes. Okay, the next, let's see. This is Charney Zuckerberg Greenberg. Thank you for recognizing and supporting us, Rachel.
Absolutely.
Ellen says Rachel should understand that most of we retirees were not in UFT or DC 37, so it's ridiculous that those two unions are trying to deprive us of our promised health care in retirement.
Again, at a point when most people cannot any longer collectively bargain. So you no longer have a seat at the table. And these are people who made choices based on promises at the end of the road, and you just don't go back and break the promise. That really undermines the entire foundation of public service. Our country for decades has sort of been built on this system. That's the incentive for many people to go into public service, and why good people will take jobs in the public sector. And we don't want to lose that incentive.
No, and that was actually the basis of our court case last week. I don't know if you watched that. Ellen actually says it's a long question. It says, it like took off half our faces. It says, as Rachel watched the oral argument in Benkowski from last week, it might give her an idea of how we retirees with Marianne's leadership are capable of collective action. We may not be in Rachel's district, but we share our information with other retirees on our Facebook page and via our own social media. If she hasn't watched, I hope she does, because the city's attorney was made to squirm by the panel when he said that he could not say that a promise was made to we the retirees for traditional Medicare. So what she's referring to was we one of the bases of our litigation, this was a New York State Court of Appeals. We were up in the highest court in the state, protecting our two lower wins. And we won this case on promissory estoppel, that the city promised us that, and against a government, we won in the Supreme Court and appeals court with unanimous decision. Mayor appealed, and we went up to the COA. So they've had two different bites at this to say, to refute any evidence that the retirees put into this case to prove what promise was made to us. Not only did we provide them with summary program descriptions, we also provided them with affidavits from retirees. We gave them documents from unions. We gave them documents from our pension seminars. We gave them documents from New York City's personnel. We even had an affidavit from a former deputy mayor who worked in personnel that said this was a recruitment and retention tool, that we had told people that come and work for the city because when you retire, you will have the promise of Medicare with a city paid supplemental and your pension, and you will have security in your future. And the city never put in a single affidavit or rebuttal to any one of those affidavits.
Interesting.
So that was huge that happened.
Yeah, I would love to watch the oral argument. I knew that you were going because the day before you went, I bumped into one of your, the members of the group who was telling me she was getting on the bus the next morning to go to Albany. I would love to watch the oral argument. I'm an attorney, and I'll
send it to you.
Time to do that. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a live stream on YouTube, and I'll send you the link. And if they still have commercials in it, I'll send you our recording, because I actually edited the commercials out. But it was a nice, I think it took us 50 minutes from start to end. And what she's talking about is we literally took 100 retirees to court in Albany. We left from City Hall, and we gave them lunch and dinner because we knew it's an all-day affair. I mean, it was like a 13-hour day. We get up there, and we filled the courtroom, and we filled the overflow room. And then we went into the park afterwards, and Jake and Steve, our two litigators, explained to us what happened, because it seemed really contentious, and many of us were nervous about this argument, that what would happen. And so now we're just like on pins and needles waiting to see what that response could be. If it comes soon, we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah. I just want to commend you, though, on your advocacy. I mean, so often in these situations, it is the only thing that makes a difference. And doing this kind of organizing and the tireless work that you are putting in, I know that you don't stop. I mean, I've heard from you early in the morning and late in the evening, and you are laser focused on accomplishing the goals for your members. And I just, it's just so unique. And I think it's incredible.
Well, remember, we were trained old school from our unionists. So we do things like even these younger union leaders don't seem to understand, like, where is all her money coming from? She must be funded by dark money. I'm like, no, we're funded by angry retirees. It's called the power of collective action.
The power of people. That's what
people power. Absolutely. Yeah. And they don't seem to get that. Like, you literally stole their health care from the elderly and the disabled. You have to expect that to make people pretty angry.
Yeah.
So absolutely true. So let's see. Anne Marie says, I am sure this may be true of retirees from other parts of the city who belong of 1199. At less, 1199 tries to continue to support what they can for their retirees. I'm going to tell you, Anne-Marie, I got a call from 1199 today, and we supported their opposition slate for election after meeting with them. And I'll tell you, I've known George Gresham for a very long time. He's a very honorable gentleman. He's run that union for a very long time, since Dennis, and I knew Dennis as well. But it was time for George to go, and they're actually trying to figure out how they can kind of reverse being forced into Medicare Advantage, because that was done, I want to say, in like 2014 or 2015, and their members are still having some issues with that. The largest healthcare union should not be in a Medicare Advantage plan, and again, it should be an option, a choice. It shouldn't be a mandate. So we'll see what happens with that. Laura says, yes, I wasn't happy after attending the oral argument. When I watched the oral argument on video, I felt more encouraged that there's a chance for those judges to do the right thing. I'll tell you that I've watched the court proceedings now 3 times, and it's about a 50-minute video. I felt better, like she's saying, after watching it the second and third time. I guess the anxiety of being there and watching it, you sometimes you miss things, and the nuances of the responses. So I agree with you, Laura. I hope the same thing. I think it's that important. Jana says, I'm late. Does District 4 encompass the Upper East Side?
That's actually a very fair question, because the district is so gerrymandered. I can give a quick description if that's okay. So District 4 runs from 93rd Street on the Upper East Side all the way down to 14th Street. So it's on the Upper East Side. It's 5th Avenue, Madison, Park, Lex, and 3rd. It runs down 3rd. At 58th Street, it goes all the way east to the river. It takes in Murray Hill, Kips Bay, Tudor City, all of Stuyvesant Town and Peter Cooper Village. And then it also goes as far west as 7th Avenue in Midtown South. And it comes down Broadway. And so, what that means about this district, in addition to including these incredible residential neighborhoods like Stuyvesant Town, or like some of the neighborhoods in the Upper East Side or Tudor City, it also includes some of the most iconic institutions of the city, whether it's New York Public Libraries or Museum Mile, some of Broadway, St. Patrick's Cathedral, Rockefeller Plaza. This is a district whose future matters and whose well-being matters to New York City. When people around the world think of New York City, they're often thinking of this district, and it deserves a strong voice in the council for that reason.
Absolutely. And this has been a frustration, is you have Stuyvesant Town, who's like a naturally occurring retirement community. They call them NORCs. You have a lot of city retirees in these buildings. And many of them have been absolutely frustrated with the incumbent. And for those watching that don't remember what District 4 is, that's Keith Powers' district, correct?
Yes.
And he's not been a supporter of us. He's actually refused to meet with us. He's refused to meet with his own constituents on this issue. I don't see Bob Pfefferman on, but Bob is one of the, he's been trying to get me 3 times today, and I've been in a meeting on every one of these calls. But he is one of the biggest largest retiree groups of DC 37 retirees, who's very disappointed in his own incumbent, because he's not supported protecting us at all. And so he's very, very frustrated with that. He's actually working on trying to interfere in his election in running for Manhattan Borough President and going after his opponent because of how he treated him as a city councilman. So there are a lot of people in your district, especially in the Stuytown area, that would absolutely support the change that you're talking about.
Well, I'd be honored to have the support. And really, we're just generally speaking, we're at such a critical juncture for the city and the country. There's so much at stake. And Anne-Marie is asking about Bellevue. And yes, this district does include Bellevue. Absolutely. And I am and I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you're on that, my dad used to work at Bellevue. So I have a special feeling there, but it's very important, obviously, in the healthcare landscape of the city. But I was just saying, we are at such a critical juncture. This is an unusual time. And I hope that people will engage in the voting process, even in this district, which is an educated, relatively literate, relatively affluent district. The turnout for an election like this hovers around 10%. I mean, that's, out of 180,000 people, that's 19 or 20,000 people who could be voting this time around, assuming, it'll be a little higher than normal because of the mayor's race. It's not enough. People's retirements are at stake, their housing costs, their public safety, so many things that touch our daily lives are at stake, not to mention what's coming down the pipeline from Washington, D.C., and potentially some real chaos for New York City, including around healthcare. So we need some strong voices at the table, and I would be honored to have the support of the members of this group.
Laura says we can use a lawmaker unlike Keith Powers, who feels citywide issues like our municipal retiree benefits that critically matter. And you have a lot of other, do you have issues? Like there's a lot of other issues in your district, or are there important things in your district that you want to address that are not being addressed today?
So many. Look, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a mom of 4, and I'm really living all of this in the city. I walk to work. I walk my kids to school. We deal with the spike prices for food and housing and everything else that make it really a little bit too hard to live in New York City. And I think the city didn't feel like this even 5 years ago. There's been a change. I am fairly focused on public safety, although, in our day-to-day life, many of us feel safe. However, many of us don't. I cannot tell you the number of people I talk to who won't even go down onto the subway platform anymore. We're a global city. We need to have a transportation system that functions well and that people feel comfortable riding. We have epidemics of mental health and homelessness that have not been adequately addressed. As a former legal aid attorney, something like mental health is an issue I care a lot about. Frankly, we also don't have enough cops on the street. At its peak, the department had around 41,000 officers. Today, I think that number is hovering around 32 or 33,000 for a variety of reasons, including low morale in the department and the fact that it's hard to fill some of the academy classes. I think our new commissioner is doing a great job. But, we have to make sure that the department is fully staffed so we can have patrols where we need them, whether it's on the street or the subway. We have rampant retail theft. We're all waiting in front of the drugstore cases to buy our toothpaste. There are illegal weed shops. And then I will say a word about the e-bike situation, because this is something I talk about with somebody almost every day of the week. I mean, that situation is really out of control. Those bikes are flying down not just the streets, but the sidewalks in both directions. You feel like your head needs to be on a swivel because you don't know which way to look. And I mean, look, like it's a city of people who want their food fast. And I get it. It's a fast city, but we just have to do more to ensure that this is also a city of pedestrians and that pedestrians can be safe here. My own 4 kids, my son is a big guy, but my girls are not big. They're little and they're in an age, they want to be a little more independent. They want to run to Target or they want to get a slice of pizza. And I have to feel nervous for them to cross the street in a way I shouldn't because of the placement of the bike lanes, who's coming through the bike lanes, where the cars are going. I mean, we need to really revamp the whole transportation system in a pretty holistic way. But in terms of those e-bikes, there really are some specific things the council can do. I think they need to be licensed at point of sale. That would not be complicated, so that there can be some accountability when there's an incident and the rider doesn't just ride away. They need to have lights on the front and back. They shouldn't be in the parks or greenways. And we do have to ask those delivery companies for a little more or a lot more accountability. They ding those riders when they're late, but they don't give them any safety training or equipment. So they're disincentivizing them from riding safely. And we can ask for more from those companies.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. So, so e-bikes is an issue that I think could be, I mean, nothing's a quick fix, but could have a fix in the council without too much of a heavy lift.
John says, I remember Roy Goodman handing out campaign literature on First Avenue and 18th Street while returning from scout troop meetings at St. George's. The district needs a new leader for today. Laura says, yes, the bikes need to be more in control, especially the motorbikes. I can't tell you how many persons I know who've been injured. Actually, our attorney's wife got hit by one of those. It was, it scares a lot of people.
It's very common. I know many senior citizens who won't leave their building without having somebody check because they're just, the bikes are so heavy and they go so fast. So if you're
Yep.
hit, it's a real situation. I mean, I bumped into somebody the other day, a friend of a friend, and he had bandages covering his forehead. He had been hit by a bike and taken a nasty fall. Thank God he was okay, but it wasn't nothing.
No.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. With like little mini scooters. Ellen says, would you support micro units to be approved for construction on the city's in-rem land for units for seniors and young public servants? During Koch, the in-rem land was indeed used for some subsidized units.
Yeah, I am absolutely open to looking at creative fixes for the housing crisis. We just have a very acute crisis around affordability generally, but I think that housing is the center of gravity of that crisis. We now have the median rental for a one bedroom or sometimes even a studio is around $5,000, and vacancy rates are 1.5%. Even in Stuyvesant Town, which was built to be this oasis of middle class housing for veterans coming home from World War II. Some of those units are going on the market for over $6,000. And we are regularly having people tell us, and I raised my child in Stuyvesant Town. That child is now a teacher, and he or she can't afford to live here. And so, they are not just leaving Stuyvesant Town, they're leaving Manhattan altogether. And sometimes they're leaving New York City altogether. So we've got to do more. Looking at creative solutions like that with the in-rem housing stock is absolutely something we should look at. We need to build more supply, whether that's building on City of Yes. I thought that was a good step in the right direction, but really just a drop in the bucket. Why I thought it was important was that it represented a change of attitude in the council and some historic rezoning, really dating back almost to 1961. But that's going to allow for 4,000 units a year when we need 100,000 a year. We've got to continue rezoning some of the unused space, office space in Midtown, and looking for some mixed use opportunities with not just the offices, but residential and retail, and not just single units, but 2 and 3 bedroom apartments where families can live. So yes to the seniors, yes to the young people, but also for families. When I think of New York City, I think of this as the place where people come with their talent to develop it and shine, whether they're writers or actors or artists or people who work for nonprofits, not to mention teachers or union workers making good paying wages who also cannot afford to live here or live near a work site and are bringing in long commutes. And today the city has just become out of reach for too many of those people. It's out of hand. So, we've got to build supply. We've got to keep protecting the rent stabilization and Mitchell Lama and the tenant protections, that those are fundamental protections in the city that do make living in the city affordable for so many. And we need to fight to preserve all of that as well.
Absolutely. You have a question from David that says, any relationship to the actor comedian Larry Storch? He's a native New Yorker.
So I get asked that all the time, and we all like F Troop. The answer is I don't know for sure. I tend to usually think yes, because there was a generation on my dad's side of 5 brothers, and they didn't stay cohesive. And it's not that common a name. So whenever people mention a Storch and it's a New York Storch, I have to think it's like my dad and his dad grew up in Far Rockaway, and I think probably yes. I'd like to think yes.
That's awesome. Well, and I'll tell you, I started doing Ancestry during COVID because none of us really had anything to do then, and I found so many of my relatives that I never knew.
Oh, it's amazing.
And actually, even because I live in Atlanta, near the Atlanta area, so I met a woman at a farmer's market that I used to run who looked at my last name and said, Pizzatola. Are you related to a Vincenzo Pizzatola? And I said, which one?
Oh, I love it. I love it. No, with all the genetic testing that's out there, you really can have some fun. My husband did 23andMe, and we got his list, and we're looking through it. He does not have a big family that he's aware of. He only has one brother, and his parents have passed away, and they were both, let me think about this. His dad was an only child, and his mom had siblings, but they passed away. We started finding people literally in our synagogue, and we were like, wow, thank goodness we like that person. But you don't know, so that was a lot of fun for us, and we've made some really great connections to people that showed up on his list.
That's you never know. That's how I found a second cousin of mine in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's great.
John says union members do not have to vote with the leadership. Look at the Midwestern trade unionists who have voted GOP. Oops, despite their leaders. We just have to get the word out about healthcare.
John, listen, you're absolutely right. And I know this from firsthand experience because I don't know if you were on earlier, but I was saying that I was a state legislator in Missouri. I mean, I was there when it was a long time ago. Missouri was still purple at that time. We had a Democratic governor, but we were already starting to bleed out of the unions, that they were voting on guns and other issues, and they'd vote with the GOP on those issues rather than voting with their union. So when people feel persuaded that their interests are not being advocated for, they'll step out of line.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see. Even our dear mom and pop stores have had such a hard time keeping up with their rents. Their rents can become astronomical. I don't know much about this, but what roles can council members have in advocating for them?
Oh, this is such a great question. Those mom and pop stores are really the backbone of the East Side. I mean, that's what give our neighborhoods character. They're part of the economic engine. And that's what makes New York special. And today you walk up and down those streets and there's empty storefront after empty storefront. It goes to quality of life. It doesn't feel good. It lowers morale when you see that. And so we have to make sure that there are incentives in place for one, landlords to rent to businesses, that it's not preferable for them to take a tax write-off to have the space be empty. But they were also making it manageable for small businesses to come in. One of the ideas I've had is, and it's on my website, is to put a small business ombudsman in place, because I started hearing from local business owners that the regulations that they have to deal with and the legal steps that they have to take to start a business and stay in place as a business are so onerous for them. And, these small mom and pop businesses don't necessarily have the resources to hire the attorneys or to work through the process. And having that small business ombudsman and having some city services to walk those small business owners through the process. I mean, they may not be able to do everything for free, but assist them with standard forms and that kind of thing can make all the difference. Like, I met the owner of a hair salon in my neighborhood who stopped me on the street to tell me that she had ended up with a huge fine for the city for something she knew nothing about. She would have complied if she'd known about it, but she's one person running a business and trying to make things work, trying to pay her employees, and the legal aspects of this, the red tape and the administrative burden can just be really overwhelming for those small business owners. So making sure we're helping them navigate that process too.
Yeah, when I was in the city last week, there's a little deli across the street from City Hall that I always go to. And it was great because they had the tables in the back and you can go and sit and talk to your friends or an elected, have a cup of coffee. And that's kind of been like our meeting place. It's like an unofficial office, so to speak. And we would go, it's inexpensive. We would have breakfast or lunch or dinner there. Anyway, they were closing, and last week was their last Friday. And I was so sad to hear that. And I said to them, why are you closing? Because, this has to be a successful deli. And they said, because the landlord just raised their rent to $60,000 a month, and they just couldn't do it.
Manageable, right? That's just not sustainable. So, we have to look at that framework and make sure that those kinds of businesses can survive. Look, we love our cafes and our diners and those unique little shops, but it's gotten really tough for them to survive. And we're all going to be sorry if they're gone. The city won't feel the same when we have, neighborhoods filled with smoke shops and chain stores. It won't feel the same.
Anne-Marie says, please go see or contact these workers at the lab and Bellevue. There are many friends there who are about to retire. So as the lane is moving very soon, Aldo, the firehouse on 30th Street, a cousin retired from there and was a chief, was involved in 9/21.
Maybe it was 9/11.
Oh, 9/11. Oh, gotcha. Thank you for seeing that. I didn't understand what she was saying. A lot of guys died in that event. So she's telling you to go to the firehouse that's there.
Will do. Yeah, absolutely. Look, those guys are heroes. And I feel very strongly also, I'm just going to say that we have to sustain comprehensive benefit protection, whether it's health coverage or disability benefits or survivor benefits. There's just too much uncertainty around benefits for 9/11 survivors and line of duty widows. And there's really some legitimate fear there that the promised benefits aren't going to be there when they're needed the most.
There's actually a problem with that right now because the stabilization fund that pays for active workers is basically imploded because of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems is that there's no coverage for the Women and Children's Fund. They forced it back on the unions.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to make sure there is a sustained funding stream and ironclad guarantees there.
Absolutely. Well, we're about 7:20, so I'm going to give you the last few minutes for you to say whatever you want to say and close.
Okay, great. I'll just close by saying what an honor it is to be here and what an honor it is to have the support of this group. I feel incredibly strongly about the issue. I think there's an honor code here. You just don't roll back a commitment that was made. And you have my commitment that I would be a partner and an advocate for you going forward. Not only on this issue, but on so many of the issues touching quality of life around New York City and certainly in District 4, whether it's public safety, whether it's affordability and the crisis around healthcare, I meant to say around housing or childcare. I'm ready to really fight for New York if proposed cuts around healthcare go through. You know, we're already a city where 1 in 4 are living under the poverty line. And if some of the cuts that they're talking about at the federal level go through, our hospital system is really going to be in a world of hurt. So standing strong to fight for New Yorkers in the current climate that we're in. I have almost 30 years of experience that I'm looking to bring to bear on the challenges facing the city and put to work for you, both serving in office myself. There's no substitute for experience. It's like anything else in life. I'm a lawyer. I've managed a major nonprofit for the last 5.5 years. Frankly, I'm also a mother of 4, and I have the seasoning and the wisdom that comes with having a family. And I am doing this for no other reason than to make life better for the community around me and the families around me, for people, whether they are 2 to 92. My great grandparents came from this country, many generations ago, looking to make a better life for their own children, and that involved being able to attain an education. They both went to CUNY. My grandparents went to CUNY tuition free, and it involved being able to have some social mobility and practice religion freely. And today, many of these things are being called into question. But I love New York. I fundamentally love this city where I was born and where I'm raising my children. And you will have my deepest commitment that I will fight every day to keep this city strong, not just today, but into the future.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It was really wonderful speaking with you today. You're welcome to come back anytime you want.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really very grateful. And thanks again for incredible advocacy.
You're welcome. And actually, there was one more question here. It says, Ms. Maggie wants to know, where do your kids go to school?
Okay, sure. So my younger 2 kids are at a school called Ramaz, which is a Jewish day school, and my older 2 kids are at Horace Mann. And I just want to thank you for your support again. Laura, thank you so much for your kind remarks. I'm ready to fight. Thank you so much.
You have a lot of support here, Rachel. This is really beautiful.
I'm honored to have it.
Well, thank you again. I'm going to put you back in the waiting room. You have a great evening, and thank you for joining us. We appreciate your support of us, and you have our support.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks so much.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
So everyone, that is yet another interview that we've concluded with yet another council candidate. And as you are correctly stating, that this is exactly what we need to do, is meet people, speak to them about the issues, not just our healthcare issues that we have, but the issues for those of you that are in the district that have issues in your own District 4 that you want to know how they will help you with those. So thank you so much. I know this is what we have to do. I mean, I don't like these politics, but I have to keep doing it. Love you. Keep working politics. I'm going to try. This is what we have to do. Sandy, yes. Good luck, Rachel. She's definitely feeling the love from you guys today. And I'm so glad that you appreciate and respect her tonight. because this is exactly what we need. Camille says, I wish I still lived in Stuytown. I wish you did too. But listen, this is exactly, we have to do this work because we need to be able to find people in the council. If you read the newspaper the other day, the city council is not even doing the work that they've even done last year. If you look at the amount of bills that they had passed going back in 2024 to what they've done in year to date today, doesn't even touch it. They're not doing the work and they're all distracted. So that's a problem, not just for us as retirees, but for every New Yorker that's relying on their city council member to do the work of their district. So from the top down, this goes from Adrienne Adams to the city council members. We need to keep vetting council members that will do the right thing and bring back integrity to the city council. So thank you. You're welcome, Anne. I appreciate you too. And Janice, thank you as well. We're going to keep working on your issue too, so don't worry. I will be speaking to you probably next week. Matthew says MLC versus New York City Adams is moving forward late May, early June. Actually, I don't have any insight on that. I've been reading the documents in that case, and I can't tell you what'll happen with that. It's an interesting case. It's an interesting case. I think I'm going to leave it at that. The unions made a really bad deal. And unfortunately, they left themselves open to that. And because the United Federation of Teachers in DC 37 basically convinced all the other unions to do this, and then basically leaving them all holding the bag on this. So that's another one for the court to handle. I don't know how that one will go. We'll just have to all, pay attention to it. So listen, everyone, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your weekend. We will close the Facebook page through Monday. We will see you Tuesday morning. I don't think we'll be hearing anything from the court, but if we ever do, we will always pop the page open and make our announcement to you, and we will email it as well. If you guys are doing phone banking or anything for any of the other candidates, we know that Maya Kornberg from District 39 and Adafi Akporo from District 7 are still looking for people to help out. Many of you signed up for the Maya Kornberg event but didn't show up. If you're interested in the signing for the how-to, please send an email to the organization retirees@nycretirees.org and ask for the instructions. They're pretty easy, and you could probably do it without having the little class, but there is a phone number and an email for Olivia, who's helping for District 39, and then we can do the same thing for Adafi's people. We've got to get great candidates like this into the council so that we can start getting business done and protection for the retirees as well. So you guys have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the time off. I know I'm going to try, and I know I'll probably be filming some more videos. I have another one that's coming out today with Chi Osei, so please check that out. I'm sure that'll definitely give you all a good chuckle. I did a little rap video with Michael Mulgrew the other day, so I hope you got that one and you saw that was funny. Look under shorts. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see videos, you'll see shorts, and you'll see lives. It's like they're changing all of the rules on YouTube. If my video is used to be under 60 seconds, it was a short. I think now if it's under 3 minutes, it's considered a short. So it won't always show up on your videos. So just click that tab up at the top and look at those, because those are really kind of funny. I've been trying to make them light and short and sweet, but I think I perfected him doing an old 80s style rap. Figure just needed a chuckle. Not everything has to be work. I can't believe the FDNY and EMS are backing Justin Brannan. What can I tell you? Anyway, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next week. I love you guys. Ciao.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you